A lot of you who've been watching my channel would have known that I test my pens or do a writing sample with this Rhodia pad down here. So since I'm going to be running out of pages very soon on this pad and I'm going to change to another writing pad or notepad, I'm just going to do a quick look on this pad and how it served me over the last few months. So first of all, this pad is by Rhodia. So it's a brand, I think started in 1934, if I'm not wrong, by two brothers. That's what probably the two trees down here signify. Not 100% sure. The way that the papers are attached on the notepad are actually using these rather large staples. Primitive, but it works. And looking at the way that Rhodia kind of categorizes their paper, right? This normally has a number system. So this is the number 14, and it's a 5 by 5. So what does 5 by 5 mean? It actually means there are actually 5 squares that fit within an inch, and it's in a grid format, right? And each square is about 5 millimeter in size, which you'll see later on. Nothing much else here. There's a patent pending down here. So the official name of Rhodia products is Block Rhodia, or rather that's where the website name is. Number 14 again, and it says 80, can't pronounce the French, probably it's filet, sheets 80 gram per square meter. So sometimes paper manufacturers call it 80 GSM. And what does the 80 GSM mean? So in generally when it comes to paper, you can get copy paper for 80 GSM. It really doesn't really mean very much besides the weight of the paper that would kind of comprise a square meter of that paper, right? However, important to know that for Rhodia, their premium paper is categorized normally in the 90 GSM range. However, it does not mean when you buy paper that the higher the GSM, the better the paper would be, right? For example, Tomoe River, which is the gold standard still for a lot of fountain pen lovers, right? They normally use like 52 GSM or 68 GSM, right? So paper has to be tested, same as for pens and ink and so on. I'm not going to attempt this. High-grade vellum paper. So what's vellum paper? So in the past, when people actually made paper, they actually used animal products and they kind of compressed the skins of animals. Sounds kind of gross, and that's how paper was formed. However, in modern production processes, they actually use cellulose or plant or wood fibers to kind of produce paper. So no worries, there's no animal product in this paper. And last but not least, actually not last but not least, there's other parts later on. There's actually the size, the dimension of this pad. I am not sure why I bought this particular number 14, right? At the time that I bought it, I didn't know anything about paper and how important it was. So it's a strange size. It's actually 11 by 17 centimeters or 4.3 by 6.7 inch paper in terms of dimension. And the reason why it's strange is because, it could be a US standard in terms of a paper, but A6, which is kind of half the size of A5, it has different dimensions to this. If I'm not wrong, it's slightly narrower and slightly shorter than this paper size. The paper is made in France, or rather maybe the notebook was made in France. I think the production was in France. And very importantly, PEFC is actually a sustainable forestry NGO, right? The other famous NGO is actually FSC. So this sign means that the paper that I'm using is actually sustainably farmed. or harvested. So looking inside the pad, I normally just do this. Some people actually just rip the cover off, but I don't like that. And sorry, each paper is it's perforated, so basically you can tear it very cleanly like so, which is nice. And as you can see all these grids down here. You probably wonder what the purpose of these grids are. And if I kind of move up to the writing sample, I'll just briefly go through what do I use this paper for, and I'll do a bit of writing on with various pens that I have. So starting with the Pelican, the M800, which is in broad. And it's inked with Pilot Hiroshi Zuku Shinkai. So I'm going to also to color a square down here to kind of show you, what happens, bleed through wise, whether there's a large bleed through with, patches of ink like this. Okay. And the reason why I buy grid paper for general evaluation is because when I was learning cursive, or I'm still learning cursive actually, when you write, you can actually use this angle down here. This is obviously 45 degrees. The ideal writing angle is slightly steeper than that, at about 52 degrees. If you're learning Spencerian, but it's a good guideline for me to kind of, if I'm doing like, all the cursive, it provides a good kind of benchmark for me to kind of make sure that my letters are aligned correctly. I mean, the other way that people actually do this is they might use guide sheets underneath paper to kind of let them know the angle. But this was the way that I used these grid lines, and that's how it helped me. So I want to use and give it a fair shout. I'm going to be using my my loom, and this one is in extra fine. So it's super fine compared to the Pelican up here. And this is still using the FC blue ink, which I am not quite sure what ink they used, right? And I'm going to still do that shading of that square. So in terms of the feel of the paper, I find that this 80 GSM Rhodia it's smooth, but it's not too smooth. I mean, lots of people might think, there's a great advantage to having paper that's ultra smooth. However, and this pen would be a great kind of test of that. If the paper is too smooth and if the nib is too smooth as well, right, you might have hard starting issues when it comes to writing, right? At least that's from my experience. You want the paper to have a little bit of tooth. That's the non-official term for it. And this is a pen which I'm going to be reviewing soon. It's the Mont Blanc 149, and this is also in broad. Do you see that little skip? Hope you caught that. And this is using Pilot Hiroshi Zuku Shinkai, one of my favorite inks. Okay, so characteristics of this paper is, the dry time is kind of medium. I wouldn't say it's not like super absorbent, neither is it like super, you know, like the ink just stays there forever, right? So it's kind of a mixture of both, right? So let me bring up the writing to kind of show you close up. I hope my lens can kind of catch the shading and so on. So you can see a little bit of shading. Shading is actually kind of the variation of the ink, you know, the density, right? When you lay down the ink. So you can see shading on the broader nibs. I can't see, and this is where I was mentioning that little skip earlier on, I can see a tiny bit of feathering, right? So you can see in this line there are little kind of a spreading out of the ink effect, and that's actually not a good thing. There's also the shading down here in the C. For the extra fine, I don't think there's much problem there. And for this other broad, you can see a tiny bit of feathering, but not that obvious. That's that shading again up here. So I mean, depends whether or not you like shadings. The other characteristic when ink gets laid down to paper is actually to kind of see the sheen on it and maybe the shimmer. I don't think there's any here, but right. If you want that, you might have to use some other type of paper. So I tend to write on both sides of this pad paper. And if you look, you know, behind, you can see that for that first broad on Shinkai, there's just a trace of bleed through. Bleed through is actually where you can see the ink behind the paper. And for this, for the Mont Blanc, because it is a very, very wet nib and pen, right, you can actually see a tiny faint bit of bleed through. For the extra fine lume, if you don't do like crazy shading, it's pretty much transparent down here. So what are my thoughts on this notepad? So I mean, I'm down to like, you know, 3 pages. By the way, the back of the pad actually has a piece of cardboard down here to kind of keep it stiff. I think generally it has served me well. My major concern with notepads, because it is a consumable like ink, right? However, an ink bottle can last for a long, long time. So I mean, if you get a 30 ml of ink, it can literally write like many, you know, maybe like 10 of these pads easily or even more, right? So paper is a big consideration when it comes to cost and consumables in the fountain pen hobby. And for me, I think Rhodia is a bit pricey, right? You can find this pad out in the market for around $2, $2-ish, right? In terms of US dollars. And for this, just trying to give you an idea of how small this pad is. It is a pretty small notepad. I mean, with my M800 down here. For this size pad, for that $2, $2.50 mark, I think it could be a bit rich for my taste if I write a lot, which is why I'm going to be replacing, and you'll see this in future writing samples from me. I'm going to be replacing that pad with this pad by Hurlitz, which is, wow, I'm not sure whether that's how I pronounce it. It's actually a brand called Xbook by them, and I'm going to be switching to A5 because I feel that that size was kind of a strange size. And this one has 50 sheets and 70 GSM. So I will be going through my thoughts about this paper in a future video. And if you look at interesting thing about Hurlitz, if you guys weren't aware, it's actually a Pelican company, right? So or sub company, sub brand, and it's pretty affordable for this pad up here. It's about $1 US or thereabouts. It could be difficult to find if you're not in Europe, but you know, maybe you can give it a try in your local stationery shop. And I'm going to be giving this a go to give you my thoughts in a subsequent video, like I said. So I hope you enjoyed this little quick look in terms of paper. Please let me know your thoughts. What paper do you actually use yourselves when you're using your beloved fountain pens? If you like this video, please give it a like and comment and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.